So I kind of want to have a nerd moment for just a minute and explain just some things about credit. And because I was just so young when it came to figuring out what credit even was, I became kind of obsessed with it. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit of information about this. And I'm sure that some of you are listening, you're like, this is dumb, we don't really care. But actually, it's kind of interesting. So hang in there with me. This won't be a very long podcast, but I kind of want to just give you a little bit of history and kind of giggle with you just a little bit. So credit scores really became important like in the 70s. And really before then, it really came down to whether the banker liked you. If you wanted to get a loan and you just had impeccable payment history, you always paid your bills on time, you were just incredibly good when it came to looking at you as a person and paper and financially and all that jazz, but the banker didn't like you, you just got rejected. So it truly was, if you didn't get along with the person at the banking institution, sucks to be you, you just don't get a loan. That's just how it was. And it's kind of sad. So you could have a really, really, really poor history of how you take care of your financial obligations and schmooze the banker and they'd give you a loan. And that's kind of sad. So then there's these guys that come in, and I hope you guys can tie the names together. Bill Fair and Earl Isaac were their names. They started the actual credit scoring models. They actually, though, when they first started it back, I think it was in the 50s. 50s. It failed. It wasn't successful. And they just, as they could, they continued on. They just did everything that they could to continue to refine it and refine it and refine it. And finally, we come out with what's called a FICO score. And that came from our buddy, Bill Fair. Bill Fair and Earl Isaac. Just kind of cool. Just kind of cool how that came about. But I just want to let you know, it used to be that you could schmooze your way into getting a loan. And unfortunately, that's just not the way we are right now. There is a Fair Credit Reporting Act that came out sometime in the 70s that it really just regulated how you could fairly obtain credit. And, I think in my world, there's a lot of laws that have been put in place. And unfortunately, laws are put in place to protect people. Sometimes it's just not necessary to have as many laws as we have, but some just think where we would be right now if you just could go in there with a box of chocolates and schmooze your way into getting financing. Maybe not the smartest way to do that right now. But so, the Fair Credit Reporting Act came in and helped us to be able to regulate that. It just helped us regulate. There's the 3 credit bureaus we've talked about: Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. We've talked about getting accounts at Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion because your scores hopefully have been frozen, and hopefully you're protecting those credit scores. There is a difference of score models. And this is what's really crazy is there's such a misunderstanding. There's 2 companies that come to mind, Credit Karma and Credit Sesame. Those are kind of a monitoring system of what your credit score is doing, but there's just more than one scoring model. So you've got the FICO score, which comes from Fair Isaac Corporation. Get it? Fair Isaac Corporation. And that's kind of the most popular scoring model, I would say. It's kind of what's hits us the most with being able to obtain credit. We've got the Vantage score that comes out, and that also uses Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. It's an alternative, to the FICO score, and it just ranges differently, and it's just scored differently. The Vantage score and the FICO models, they're not the same when it comes to, say, obtaining a mortgage loan. If you go to Credit Karma and say, hey, what's my credit score? It could say your credit score's a 700. You go into a mortgage company and they pull it and it's a 620 and you're mad. You're like, what the heck? How did my credit score change 80 points in 10 minutes? Because I just checked it on my Credit Karma app. It's because of the different model and the different scoring. Things are removed from the scoring model on your Credit Karma profile. And there's different ways to obtain credit scores. you just have to realize that in some situations, you're using some of those tools just to know what your credit score is doing. It's not necessarily a credit score that we can use to obtain credit. So there's your little nerd moment. Go back to the 1950s when our BFF, Bill Fair and Earl Isaac pulled out and became a corporation, and that's where we get the FICO score. So Fair Isaac Corporation. So pass that information to your best friends ever, and maybe your grandpa, and maybe they'll remember the Fair Isaac and the Bill and Earl when they first came out. I just think it'd be interesting, and this is obviously going to be a short podcast, but could you imagine, Bill and Earl just hanging out on a Saturday night saying, drinking lemonade on the front porch saying, you know what? I just got turned down for my new Ford model, whatever. And I just don't think that's fair because the banker just doesn't like me because I don't like him either. And we just hate each other. Let's come up with this random number capability that we can put in place to be able to prove that people actually are okay people, not just their personalities. I just think it's an odd thing. So I guess I would task you with this. Whatever odd thought you have come to your mind as an entrepreneur, try it. Think back to that. We didn't need credit scores at the time. It was perfectly fine to go in there and schmooze your way in to get a loan. But then here we have Bill and Earl saying, hey, we're tired of getting, having that be the story that we can't get a loan because we didn't have the right friendship group to be able to get a loan from. So they had a problem and they created a solution. That's entrepreneurship right there, guys. So think about that. If you have a problem, what's our solution? Let's create it. So there's your little backstory between Bill Fair and Earl Isaac back in the 1950s. There's a little bit of a nerd moment for you. So I'll obviously keep this one short and sweet because there's really not much more to say other than there are different models. Don't get mad when you pull one model and you go apply for a mortgage loan and it's a different model. Just know there is a little bit of an education piece there, that there is a difference. Hang in there and just, pay your bills on time. So there's your nerd moment for the night. I hope you guys are enjoying being adults, and I hope you're not afraid because we're a few episodes into this and you guys are on an amazing path in the credit world. So keep up the good work. Don't be adults and be afraid, guys. Just be adults and have a good time.